Known for his incredible screen presence and what many have described as one of the best voices in Hollywood history, Charlton Heston was loved by audiences around the world. His acting career spanned 6 decades, and with award-winning films like The Ten Commandments and Ben-Hur under his belt, it's no surprise that Charlton became Hollywood's leading man during his prime. However, despite his iconic status, Charlton eventually faced a heartbreaking series of events that led to a tragic end for both him and his beloved wife. Charlton Heston was born John Charles Carter on October 4, 1923, into a family of sawmill workers. Just 11 days after his birth, his parents, Russell Whitford Carter and Lilla Baines, registered him as Charlton Carter and listed Evanston, Illinois, as his birthplace. He was primarily of English descent, with some Scottish roots tied to Clan Fraser. Some of his oldest American ancestors reportedly immigrated from England in the 1600s. Despite his mixed heritage, Charlton took great pride in his Scottish ancestry, identifying deeply with traditional values like loyalty, honor, and stubbornness. As a baby, his family moved due to his father's job, settling in St. Helens, a remote, forested area in Michigan. Charlton later described their modest bungalow in the woods as the setting for a peaceful and solitary childhood. He often spent his days fishing and hunting, embracing the wilderness around him. His early education took place in a one-room schoolhouse. When he was 10, his parents separated. His mother eventually remarried a man named Chester Heston, and Charlton, along with his younger brother Alan and sister Lilla, took on his stepfather's surname. The family moved to Wilmette, a more affluent suburb of Chicago, where Charlton attended New Trier High School. He reflected on this period of his life, saying that while every child plays pretend games, he did it more than most, and considered himself somewhat of a loner. In his own words, he was a thin hick from the woods, trying to fit in among kids who claimed to be wealthy and worldly. Despite his reserved nature, he found comfort in the solitude of the outdoors and often acted out scenes from books he had read. It was during his time at New Trier that he joined the school's drama program, a decision that would change the course of his life forever. With the launch of his acting career, Charlton Heston became involved with the Winnetka Community Theater, then known as the Winnetka Dramatist Guild. His active participation in local theater helped him earn a drama scholarship to Northwestern University, where he studied from 1941 to 1943. One of his most influential teachers was Alvina Krauss, a respected theater professor who played a major role in shaping the university's acting curriculum. She emphasized both technical performance and a deep understanding of dramatic literature, and Charlton was fortunate to have trained under her. In March 1944, he married Lydia Marie Clark, a fellow student from Northwestern at Grace Methodist Church in downtown Greensboro, North Carolina. That same year, he joined the U.S. Army Air Forces, serving for 2 years as a radio operator and aerial gunner aboard a B-25 Mitchell medium bomber. Stationed in the Aleutian Islands in Alaska with the 77th Bombardment Squadron of the 11th Air Force, Charlton took on the dangerous role of radio operator, often doubling as the second gunner. With minimal visibility, harsh weather, and limited radar, the job was perilous but crucial, as these radio men were the only link between pilots and their landing strips. During his off hours, Charlton found creative ways to stay connected with Lydia. Since he couldn't disclose his location, he devised a code using Shakespeare references in his letters. Lydia would read the quoted lines, identify the act and scene, and then use those numbers as map coordinates to approximate where he was stationed. In late 1944, the grim reality of the impending invasion of Japan loomed over the troops. Charlton and others believed a full-scale assault on Tokyo would result in hundreds of thousands of American casualties, and he was certain he'd be among those deployed. One day, after a returning military plane crashed on the island, Charlton rushed to help the pilots, but slipped on ice and was run over by an ambulance. He was taken to the base medical center and later transferred to Elmendorf Field near Anchorage, Alaska. Though still in a wheelchair, he was assigned to the base control tower, arguing that if he was capable enough for that job, he should also be ready for combat. However, before such decisions were made, the U.S. dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945, abruptly ending the war in the Pacific. Like many soldiers at the time, Charlton believed the bombs had spared his life, once saying that if he'd gone through the invasion, he wasn't sure he'd be alive. A few weeks after Japan's surrender, he was sent to Great Falls, Montana, where he was officially discharged in March 1946 at the age of 23. He returned to Evanston and was reunited with Lydia, who welcomed him at the train station. Charlton had attained the rank of staff sergeant, and his military experience led him to narrate classified training films for the U.S. Armed Forces and the Department of Energy, especially those involving nuclear weapons. For 6 years, he held Q clearance, the highest level of security authorization, equivalent to top-secret clearance in other branches. After the war, he and Lydia moved to Hell's Kitchen in New York City, where they worked as artists' models to support themselves. In 1947, they managed a playhouse in Asheville, North Carolina, earning $100 a week while pursuing their theater dreams. In 1948, Charlton was offered a supporting role in a Broadway revival of Antony and Cleopatra, starring Katharine Cornell. The following year, he portrayed Mark Antony in an independent film version of Julius Caesar. His growing reputation led to appearances on CBS's Studio One, a popular television drama series of the 1950s. Film producer Hal B. Wallace noticed him in a televised adaptation of Wuthering Heights and offered him a film contract. Though initially hesitant, Charlton recalled his and Lydia's original plan to focus on theater and television, jokingly saying, "Well, maybe just for now." At the age of 26, Charlton Heston made his feature film debut in Dark City, a 1950 film noir directed by Hal Wallace, where he played a major role. His breakthrough came shortly after when he was cast by legendary director Cecil B. DeMille to manage a circus in The Greatest Show on Earth. The film won the 1952 Academy Award for Best Picture and became the highest-grossing film of the year. That same year, he portrayed a white man raised by Native Americans in The Savage and played Andrew Jackson opposite Susan Hayward in The President's Lady. In 1953, at 20th Century Fox, he portrayed Buffalo Bill in Pony Express, and later directed another Western, Arrowhead, starring Katie Jurado. He also reunited with actress Elizabeth Scott in the melodrama Bad for Each Other, again under Hal Wallace's production. In 1954, Charlton produced 2 adventure films for Paramount Pictures, The Naked Jungle, where he battled a plague of killer ants and Secret of the Incas, which was filmed on location at Machu Picchu and bore a striking resemblance to Raiders of the Lost Ark, released 25 years later. He made his Universal Pictures debut in the 1955 comedy The Private War of Major Benson, followed by a performance opposite Jane Wyman in the drama Lucy Gallant. However, it was his iconic portrayal of Moses in DeMille's The Ten Commandments in 1956 that cemented his status as a Hollywood legend. DeMille cast him partly because he believed Charlton resembled Michelangelo's sculpture of Moses. Adding a personal touch, Charlton's 3-month-old son, Fraser Clark Heston, portrayed the infant Moses. The film became one of the highest-grossing movies of all time and was a critical and commercial triumph. Charlton's performance received wide acclaim, with critics praising him as both regal and deeply human. The role earned him a nomination for Spain's prestigious Fotogramas de Plata Award for Best Foreign Performer, and a Golden Globe nomination for Best Actor in a Motion Picture Drama. He returned to Westerns with 3 Violent People in 1957. Around that time, Universal approached him with a thriller project starring Orson Welles. Charlton agreed to take the role in Touch of Evil, only if Welles directed, and the film went on to become a celebrated noir classic. He also took a rare supporting role in William Wyler's The Big Country, appearing alongside Gregory Peck and Burl Ives. He once again portrayed Andrew Jackson in the DeMille-produced film The Buccaneer, this time opposite Yul Brynner. Charlton's role in Ben-Hur, 1959, brought him his greatest career achievement, winning the Academy Award for Best Actor. The film won a record-breaking 11 Oscars and solidified his image as the face of the biblical epic. Following that, he starred in the box office flop The Wreck of the Mary Deer with Gary Cooper, but he remained energized by theater work, which he felt recharged his passion for acting. While he never returned to Broadway, he regularly performed in smaller theaters, often appearing as Macbeth, Mark Antony in Antony and Cleopatra, and Julius Caesar, and Sir Thomas More in A Man for All Seasons. He played the latter role throughout the 1960s, 1970s, and 1980s in regional productions, eventually bringing it to London's West End. The popularity of the play led to a run in Aberdeen, Scotland, at His Majesty's Theatre. Filmmaker Samuel Bronston cast Charlton as the lead in the epic historical drama El Cid, filmed in Spain, which was another box office success. He went on to appear in Paramount's military comedy The Pigeon That Took Rome and the melodrama Diamond Head. Filmed in Hawaii, Charlton Heston continued to take on ambitious and iconic roles throughout the 1960s and beyond. He portrayed John the Baptist in The Greatest Story Ever Told, Michelangelo in The Agony and the Ecstasy, opposite Rex Harrison, and took the lead in Major Dundee, directed by Sam Peckinpah. In 1966, he played General Charles Gordon in the historical drama Khartoum. Beyond acting, Charlton served as president of the Screen Actors Guild from 1965 to 1971. The Guild had originally been formed in 1933 to support actors, especially as producers and directors often dominated industry decisions. Charlton, known for his more conservative views, frequently found himself at odds with left-leaning Hollywood figures like Ed Asner. His stance on political and union matters reflected his belief in individual responsibility and limited government, views that became more pronounced as his career progressed. Although he remained active, several of his late 1960s films underperformed at the box office. The 1968 war film Counterpoint failed to leave a mark, and although the Western Will Penny received critical acclaim and was one of his personal favorites, it didn't become a major commercial success. His fortunes changed dramatically with Planet of the Apes in 1968, directed by Franklin J. Schaffner, which became a massive hit and cultural phenomenon. He followed it with the football drama, Number 1, 1969, and a smaller supporting role in Beneath the Planet of the Apes in 1970, which also performed well. In 1971, he starred in the post-apocalyptic thriller The Omega Man. Although reviews were mixed at the time, it has since become a cult classic. Around this time, he also began publicly advocating for gun rights, marking the beginning of a visible political shift. By the 1980s, Charlton had moved from being a Democrat to a Republican, explaining that it was the Democratic Party, not he, that had changed. He officially registered as a Republican in 1987 and campaigned for Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, and later George W. Bush. Returning to his career, Charlton made his directorial debut in 1972 with an adaptation of Antony and Cleopatra, in which he also starred as Mark Antony. Unfortunately, the film received poor reviews, was not released in theaters, and is rarely shown. That same year, he appeared in the successful thriller Skyjacked, a film he personally didn't enjoy, followed by The Call of the Wild, which flopped at the box office. He bounced back with a string of memorable roles. The 1973 dystopian film Soylent Green became another cult favorite, followed by The Three Musketeers, in which Robert De Niro portrayed Cardinal Richelieu. He then starred in two major box office hits, the disaster epic Earthquake and the airport drama Airport 1975, followed by the war film Midway. These cemented his place as a major star of big-budget 1970s spectacles. His momentum slowed with less successful titles like 2-Minute Warning, a suspense thriller, and The Last Hard Men, a Western. In the late 1970s, he continued with the disaster movie Gray Lady Down, 1978, and then took the lead in The Mountain Men, 1980, a Western scripted by his son Fraser Clark Heston. He also starred in The Awakening, a horror film released the same year. Fraser again contributed as a writer to Mother Lode, 1982, which Charlton directed, though it failed commercially. In the mid-1980s, Charlton took on his only primetime television role in the soap opera, The Colbys, playing the family patriarch from 1985 to 1987. He also co-produced and starred in several television films, including remakes of Treasure Island and A Man for All Seasons, often collaborating with his son. In 1992, Charlton narrated passages from the King James Bible in a video series titled Charlton Heston Presents the Bible, which aired on the A&E cable network. The following year, he joined Robert M. Schoch, John Anthony West, and others for the Emmy Award-winning NBC special The Mystery of the Sphinx, which explored controversial theories about the age of the Great Sphinx of Giza. Toward the end of his career, Charlton occasionally made light-hearted appearances, including a role as Chuck in Dame Edna Everage's productions. Even as he aged, he never took himself too seriously, and his deep, commanding voice remained one of the most distinctive and respected in the entertainment industry. Charlton Heston's powerful voice and commanding presence led him to work as a narrator in several films, including Disney's Hercules and the opening sequence of the blockbuster Armageddon. He once shared that he particularly loved playing the title role in Mr. Roberts, a part he had performed 3 times. In the early 1990s, he made an unsuccessful attempt to revive the show with Tom Selleck in the lead. In 1998, he made a humorous cameo as himself in an episode of Friends titled The One with Joey's Dirty Day. 2 years earlier, in 1996, Charlton underwent a hip replacement. He was later diagnosed with prostate cancer in 1998, but after receiving radiation treatment, the cancer went into remission. He continued acting in theater, performing in several productions at the Los Angeles Music Center, including Detective Story, The Caine Mutiny Court-Martial, and The Crucifer of Blood, in which he played Sherlock Holmes opposite Richard Johnson's Dr. Watson. In 2001, he returned to the Planet of the Apes franchise in Tim Burton's reboot, appearing briefly as a dying elderly chimpanzee. In one of his final screen roles, he portrayed Joseph Mengele in the 2003 limited release of Rua Algem 5555, My Father. In 2000, he also appeared on The Outer Limits, playing Chief Justice Hayden Ride in the episode titled Final Appeal. Charlton was a practicing Episcopalian and was often described as grounded, with a deep appreciation for spiritual tradition and the historical roots of the Christian faith. In 2000, he publicly acknowledged that he had sought treatment for alcohol use, checking himself into a Utah rehabilitation clinic during May and June of that year. He clarified that he didn't struggle with a serious addiction, but felt that his social drinking was becoming excessive and wanted to take control early. Friends and insiders described him as being proud of having recognized the issue on his own and addressing it quickly and decisively. Even as he battled personal challenges, Charlton remained active off-screen, particularly in politics. He served as president of the National Rifle Association and continued campaigning for the Republican Party, frequently speaking at events and public institutions. Known for his humor and charisma, he would joke about enduring rubber chicken dinners at political banquets and perhaps indulging in a few too many glasses of wine. Through it all, he was widely respected for his self-discipline, strong convictions, and his ability to lead both on and off the screen. Charlton Heston lived life at a relentless pace, always active in his career, advocacy, and personal passions. On August 9, 2002, he made a taped public announcement revealing that he had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. By that point, he was already experiencing the later stages of the condition. Diagnosing Alzheimer's can be difficult in its early stages, but doctors rely on a combination of neurological evaluations, physical exams, and blood tests to rule out other potential causes like thyroid problems, strokes, or brain tumors. Memory tests, which are calibrated to reflect symptoms of cognitive decline, also helped confirm the diagnosis. A member of his medical team noted that Charlton's scores were consistent with the disease. Despite his health challenges, he was honored for his contributions to the country and culture. In July 2003, during his final public appearance, President George W. Bush awarded him the Presidential Medal of Freedom at the White House. By March 2005, reports surfaced that his condition had worsened significantly, with some days leaving him unable to get out of bed. Friends and family were heartbroken by the rapid progression of his illness. Charlton passed away quietly at dawn on April 5, 2008, at the age of 84 in his Beverly Hills home. He was surrounded by his wife, Lydia, and their children. A month later, it was confirmed that pneumonia was the official cause of death. A faithful attendee of services at the Episcopal Parish of St. Matthew's Church in Pacific Palisades since the early 1980s, Charlton's funeral was held there on April 12, 2008. The ceremony drew 250 guests, including Nancy Reagan, Olivia de Havilland, Pat Boone, Tom Selleck, Oliver Stone, Rob Reiner, and Christian Bale. 10 years after Charlton's passing, his beloved wife, Lydia Clark Heston, died on September 3, 2018. At the age of 95, also from complications of pneumonia, she passed away at UCLA Medical Center in Santa Monica. A fellow actor, Lydia had starred on Broadway in Detective Story and in the 1952 film The Atomic City. Beyond her acting career, she was active in the civil rights movement and had taken part in the 1963 March on Washington, where she also captured photographs of the historic moment. Together, Charlton and Lydia represented a rare kind of enduring commitment. 64 years of marriage, a lifetime of collaboration, activism, and unwavering belief in the values they held dear. Charlton Heston remains a towering figure in American cinema and culture, remembered not only for his legendary roles, but also for his voice, his convictions, and the legacy of a life lived with purpose. Their memory lives on in those they touched and inspired.